All right, let's continue with the panel 6 on algorithmic imaging and climate sensing. And the first speakers is Tina KULT and Agnes VARNAI with creative strategies in retaining laziness. TNC was founded in 2017 by Agnes VARNAI and Tina KULT. They live and work in Vienna and experiment with wide range of media, including virtual reality, 3D, installation, sculpture, and film. By combining the different disciplines, they are researching immersive experiences and to connect the digital and physical levels of realities. TNC's aim is to expand the practices of collective storytelling.
Hi, I'm Agnes. This is Tina. We are TNC together, as mentioned, working since 2017. And I would like to start, before we get into retraining laziness, introduce very shortly our previous works, because there is kind of a continuation in several ways in our practice. So if I can have the next video. We started with the project Glue in Reality, which was an augmented reality multimedia installation. We created inflatable sculptures, textile sculptures, and a full augmented reality world. And in combination of these two realms, we wanted to tell a story of characters who are godlike figures, and we actually had our narrative that us as artists are the followers of these deities, and they represented basically the everyday rituals that we observed are following in our daily life, maybe struggling with it as well. And from this work, we went further to the idea of losing faith and what means to be a non-believer, maybe. And our next project became a video work where we embodied these two characters again, ourselves as well, where we wanted to tell a story of a journey of going into the unknown, basically. This was the tent. It was also around 20 minutes video work. Partly we filmed it in real life and then worked a little bit with CGI on it. And there was another part of the video which was only filmed in Unity. And from this project, where, as you can see, we worked with sponge material, we went further to a VR installation where we created a VR world with scanning these sponge sculptures, and people could walk around in them as they were giants around, and there was only faint noises, which we created with very simple looping of water sounds we created or we captured while filming the previous work, the tent video. And from this VR experience, we went further to basically retraining laziness, and this is what Tina will talk about.
Maybe just a really short summary of what Agnes just said, that we work a lot with recycling and experiments and fails. So we get into a material and then look at it from different perspectives, and then we process it into different works. So yeah, Retraining Laziness is our latest video installation, which happened in the framework of the EMAP residency. We worked at FACT in Liverpool. Retraining Laziness is also story-based work, which is narrated in a science fiction scenario. We are like in the science fiction genre. We are following two characters in a mega city. The city is inhabited by humans and robots, which work next to each other. But in competition, everyone tries their best to be the best. And we follow a conversation between a workaholic human and a malfunctioning robot. And the theme of malfunction was really interesting for us to observe, especially in contemporary science fiction stories where the malfunction is often also described as a really dystopian scenario, some kind of horror scenario where this non-human entity is takes the power and tries to fight humanity. And we wanted to tell a story of a malfunction where we could maybe also learn something from a non-human entity. Our robot became lazy. So in the dialogue, we can hear about different dreams, different ideas about laziness, struggles with work and work ethics. And maybe we look at the trailer of the work so you can feel or get a sense.
Tonight, for the first time during my turbocharging phase, I think I had a dream.
A dream? I wasn't aware you could dream at all. What was it about?
We were all white Jack Russell Terriers.
We were all dogs.
Yes. We were all white Jack Russell Terriers and left this place, as if driven by an invisible force that drew us away. As we had already lost too much time, we ran, as there was somewhere better to be. In leaving, we turned our backs on this place, and a sea formed at our poles. And we began to fly, but not too high. We stayed close to the water's surface. Splashes of seawater hit our faces. The sun glowed. And suddenly I broke through the surface to dive and saw the most beautiful fish imaginable.
And then?
That's it. My alarm interrupted the images.
Huh. How nice. I wish my dreams were more like that. But as soon as I close my eyes and finally fall asleep, I encounter dark shadows.
So in this talk, we mainly want to talk about our process and how we develop this work and the ideas. And we always start with a big mood board. So we have already a collection of all these works Agnes talked about, like translated in mood boards where we collect old works from us, where we want to grab some materials. We look at colors, we look at actual materials and stories and themes we like. And this we did also for Retraining Laziness. We were highly influenced by pop culture, like memes we found, films. We also read into different school of thoughts and philosophies or other art projects. Our main resource, though, were YouTube comments and Quora comments and different threads where people had an actual exchange in these online communities about their work ethics. They discussed questions like, hey, can I survive in this world? I work 80 hours a week. How can I improve my working schedule? How can I still see my lovely ones? I have severe health problems and experience this. Who else does this? So we were really inspired by this exchange. And at the same time, also faced with, it was super interesting to see also all this as self-improvement philosophies which were around. And like this, we structured the video then into 4 parts. Maybe that's also interesting to notice. We were thinking about, okay, what kind of world do we want to create? And we focused on 4 different topics. Like the one is, okay, how do they spend their free time? And how is this free time maybe still influenced by work? Another one is, how does the production line actually look like? How does a product look like? And the work itself. The third one is, how does nutrition look like? What kind of food do they eat? And the fourth one was locomotion. How do they move around in space? then we jump to the next.
Yeah, so very, very quickly, about the world building aspect, we love to collect all kinds of useless or valueless materials, basically trash, and recycle that in a form of small scale models that we 3D scan. Sometimes we cannot collect things because they are just objects in our way to the studio, so we 3D scan them and leave them on their spot, like the marble sculpture, for instance. And this gets together to be an archive of assets. Sometimes we already have an idea what we want to use them for, and then it turns out they're actually not fulfilling that purpose, but something else. Some things can be buildings, some things can be like a whole planet, and then some things are actually food and the other way around. We really enjoy working with 3D scanning and with the photogrammetry technology because we're really curious about failures or possibilities to create imperfect results. With this technique, we take high resolution photos and then create the 3D objects with using them. So we have a very painting like special texture, but then often also we don't take so much pictures and there is kind of a loss of data happening. And we also really like to play with distorting this object, knowing what the technology doesn't like, for instance, shiny objects or gray color or movement and so on. This is something we also really like to explore and work further with this aesthetic also because it feels dystopic at the end. And that everything looks a bit broken and with a decay, and it's something that we like to think about, that the objects are precious for us also as a 3D and as a physical object, but then the world we build with them feels quite dystopic actually, and there is some contradiction in there that we like. The costume, if we still have time. Yes. All right. So the next step is maybe the costume part that we did in Liverpool, actually. This is also a moment that you can see we made shots in the beach because in that time we were considering using again the footage that we filmed physically. It ended up not fitting to this work, but we will use it some other time soon. But the costume was built for us. We would have been the protagonists again. So the masks, for instance, are resembling our features. We made a cast of our face, and it was also interesting to further embody these characters that we actually really empathize with, both the human and the robot. And a little bit about the costume, we found quite in love with the aesthetics of the Metropolis, the golden robot, one of the very first robots in moving picture. But there was also the idea of like work uniform as a celebration of this going to work, as another irony of the work culture mindset that these characters are in. They also look very much the same, another kind of typical science fiction narrative, people being afraid of robots looking more and more like humans. But in our story, also humans wants to look more and more like robots. So actually, you cannot really make the difference of them. They look very identical. And then Tina will talk about some other aspects.
So as Agnes said, we couldn't play a role in this, please next video, the video anymore, but only a replica of ourselves. So we created a puppet with similar features like we constructed also already in the costumes. We scanned this puppet then in collaboration with the Fab Lab at Liverpool to get really good results because we needed some details. for this version. And then we were thinking about, okay, how to bring this puppet actually into movement. And we were working previously already with some libraries of motion capture, but then decided that we want to experiment with own motion. So we created a catalog of movements, which we wanted to have represented in the film, which went from, okay, how do people chill and how do they stand around? What kind of state are they in? So we actually collaborated here with a so-called online AI, 2D video to motion capture algorithm, and try to film ourselves. And here we also kind of discovered a lot of disturbance in the real translation from 2D to 3D. And we actually also played with this, especially in depicting certain states of nervousness and uncomfort. Yeah, I think this is it from our side. We're happy to answer your questions if there are any.
Hey there. I really do love your technique, how you're working. And I was wondering, what is the program you're working in?
Should I answer? Okay, so the production pipeline is the following. We use a camera, like a real camera, take images of this. We use Mushroom to stitch these images into a 3D object, and then we work in Blender and further bring then the altered objects into Unity game engine.
I had a question. How do you define laziness, especially in these times of mobile technology and this blurriness between like work and home environment?
I think the video piece itself is kind of giving that maybe the answer. It's not something that we wanted to answer specifically. It's kind of unanswerable for us as well, but we were just interested in actually different definitions of what is lazy. So there was no conclusion of that. It's more about what is laziness for you and for us.
One more comment to this, that the videos discussing really contemporary phenomena, also what you just talked about, that we don't invent future scenarios where which we don't know about anymore, but the human and the robot were actually complaining about different duties you also have in our lives, like being reachable all the time, have different tasks, doing your taxes, your groceries, and so on. So they talk also about daily lives. And the videos trying to, how you said already, suggest different methods how to get into this mode.
Right, thank you. Our next speaker is online. It's Sabrina DURLING-JONES, who is an artist, educator, and also a doctoral candidate and student in RIXC and Riga Technical University joint master's program of media art and creative technology.
In Japanese, the word komorebi describes the sunlight as it filters through the trees and dances across leaves. It is a phenomenon that has always connected me to my surroundings and to moments where light and shadow transcend time. My background is as a photographer and filmmaker, but I am currently a PhD candidate studying media art and creative technologies. My research involves using emerging algorithmic technologies to visualize memory sensations intended to help with coping and displacement. I have experienced displacement twice thus far in my life, so my research, working with women currently living displaced, has a very personal connection. One of the goals of this research is to develop a process that helps anyone who's been displaced reorient themselves in the present by finding connections to home. Today, I am proposing the concept of MetaMorebi, and a practice that transforms sensory encounters with nature into embodied algorithmic visualizations. What I hope to convey is how a practice that incorporates walking, scanning, and machine learning presents an opportunity to deepen our understanding of how we experience place and memory, and how this approach to mediating memory can be used as a tool for coping. The practice I am proposing begins with walking, not the hurried kind of everyday life walking, but a sort of flaneur, an act of wandering without a fixed destination, a mindful, intentional practice where the body becomes attuned to its surroundings and can experience spontaneous, meaningful encounters with nature. As I walk, I am not just moving through space, I am feeling the texture of the earth underfoot, noticing the play of sunlight across the surfaces I encounter, and absorbing the sounds of the world around me. As I walk, and as I encounter objects or scenarios that prompt memories of home, I scan those things by filming them with my cell phone as I walk around them 360 degrees. One of the women participating in the research study I've designed as part of my doctoral research recently reflected that filming objects with her phone during the intentional walks that have been prescribed encourages her to actively seek connections to her past. Walking and 3D scanning in this context has become a process of memory making. It is an embodied approach to creating digital artifacts of transient connections that might otherwise only be briefly acknowledged but then quickly forgotten. A brief note on scanning. While walking brings us into our bodies, scanning or filming using photogrammetry allows us to preserve the moments of connection we encounter. I hold up my phone, not to capture an image, but as a way of preserving the sensation of this moment. I am archiving not just what I see, but how I connect and how I feel within this connection. After the scanning, we move into the machine learning realm. I take the scans I have collected, or that the study participants have collected, and I process the images to train a machine learning model that renders neural radiance fields, or NERF visualizations. This is a form of machine learning that allows me to recreate encountered scenes in 3D with light at their core. It is here that nature is reimagined through the interplay of human intention and mechanistic procedures. It is here that the interplay of light and shadow, the virtual essence of MetaMorebi, is captured not as a photograph, but as a fully immersive, volumetric visualization that blends the physical act of walking with the technological creation of a new reality. NERF technology does not just reconstruct a static scene, it captures the behavior of light itself in the scene, the way it behaves as it moves through a scene, reflects off surfaces, and changes with perspective. It extends our sensory connection to the environment, allowing us to explore it from perspectives we might not have been able to see or otherwise access during our walk if we were not 3D scanning. As one of the study participants explains, and this is a direct quote, "Seeing the NERF visualization allowed me to revisit my walk in the forest from a new angle. I noticed details from a cedar tree I had not previously seen here in this place. Something about the position of the visualization we created immediately transported me home, and I felt as if I was standing before the cedar tree I climbed every day as a child. It was a profound connection to be able to make." As we come to the end of this exploration, I want to return to the place we began with Komorebi, the sunlight filtering through the trees, dancing across leaves, transcending time and place. Through an embodied practice of walking, the act of scanning, and the processing of NERF visualizations, we have observed MetaMorebi, a reimagining of nature, not just as we perceived it, but as a fluid algorithmic interpretation that extends human cognition beyond traditional sensory limits. This process makes it possible to virtually preserve encounters with light, sensation, and memory, transforming them into something enduring, into visualizations that speak to both the past and the present. I would like to leave with one final excerpt from a study participant that I found particularly compelling. She states, and I quote, "My body carries memories of displacement. I realized this recently as I found myself crying at a concert after a conversation about home. Filming objects that remind me of home has helped me feel connected despite my displacement. Walking here has given me a new perspective and taught me to love everything I encounter. Through this process of walking and scanning, I've created virtual scenes that help me have more empathy for the struggles we face in this place."
I'd like to ask a question. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I thank you so much, Sabrina. I'm thinking about the moving through or the moving with. How is that that actual experience, which is really multi-dimensional, isn't that maybe one of the key elements of using the scanning process? Because as you were showing us the tree, well, it's not just a tree. It's the tree with the technology that has been. Well, the tree is also a technology, but the aspect of having the occasion to be high in the tree. Let's say to have the experience of climbing as you were, as it says, you were a child. So isn't that maybe one of the key moments there, to be looking at it through movement? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I maybe did not express it in those words, but absolutely, it's the idea of being able to see things from a new perspective. And yes, the moving through, it's that fluidity, right? That fluidity of identity, of subjectivity, that is very important. I'm in my doctoral work, I'm drawing these parallels between post-human feminisms, specifically nomadic subjectivity, and the process of capturing and creating these NERF visualizations. There are so many connections from the math to the theory to the practice. It's actually really incredible to see how much one informs the other. So yes, thank you for seeing that.
All right. Thank you, Sabrina, for your wonderful presentation. And now we will move forward. A little applause. I don't know if you hear it. The next presenter is here, Martin VIZBULIS, who is an artist and also a doctoral student in the Latvia Academy of Arts.
Actually, this title describes everything I do in last 3 years. This is my the title of my professional doctorate research topic: collection of observational data and its visualization without using personal data, sensor technologies, visualization tools, and their application in art. This is the historical background of my research: panopticon principle, Michel Foucault, panopticism, and which inspires me in my creative experience. Also the novel by George Orwell, and also the artwork by John Cage and Marcel Duchamp, Reunion, which was also kind of a performance with sensorial and data. And also Leon Termin. If you don't know him, I suggest to learn more about him. This is a terrible and very interesting life story about a kind of creative and scientific person. And one side, what we know about him is the theremin musical instrument, but the other side is he's created spying devices. And there are some books which you can read about him, and also one documentary movie on YouTube. And there's one quote by Tony Doyle about perfect voyeurism and privacy. The observed never finds out that they have been watched, and this doesn't cause any complications for the person as it's never revealed. And another quote by Thomas Matthiessen about modern synopticon or synopticism. As a result, it turns out that the observer is observing something, but someone else is observing him. The one who observes the observer offers objects for observation, and depending on the reaction, can offer more engaging content. Many observe something, but some observe many. And now about my creative experience. Back in 3 years ago, I started to build, I wanted to build a phone, wall phone. Process begins and it ends up with a big phone on the wall. It was functioning phone, but there was some limitations. The limitations was that person who makes the call from this artwork couldn't speak. He had a set of sentences on the artwork, so it was limited in the communication. And he could call somebody from his phone book and try to communicate. with these sentences, with this communication setup what he got. And all these sentences were audio files which were created from text-to-speech technology, and the voice was very well-known Latvian journalist. And one phone was in Latvian language and the other one was in English. And there was also a vending machine. Visitors in the exhibition could also call this vending machine and get the instructions how to use it. It was like you call the bank and automatic responder responds and instructs you what to do. And so you could choose your drink, for example, vodka or wine or juice. And what I didn't told you, all of these works were made a database of all phone numbers were collected in the artwork, and also all the choices what these users did were saved in the text file in the artwork. Actually, there in the QR code, there's a small video of how the process was in the real life. Here we have this video, but I will not show you all of it. This all was sensitive touch buttons, and everyone in the room could hear this conversation. And after this exhibition, the artwork was in another place where at the opening came our state president and culture minister. And so in that way, after this exhibition, I got all the phone numbers of our president's bodyguards and adjutants. And 1 year later, I made another exhibition, also in the RIXC gallery. But before the exhibition, I made artworks which was filled with different kind of sensors to sense everything what happens in the room. And I put them in different places to collect the data. And also to make the surveillance, what kind of data I have and what happens there interesting. And all these data were straight from the place sent to database, MySQL database. One was in a bar. Actually interesting, the name of the bar. The bar's name in Riga we have is 1983. This is 1 year before 84. And the concert hall and other places. And so I got the data, made the research of the data, found some interesting pieces of them, and then from the data I made the images of the data. And for example, here this is one 24 hours in the bar on a Friday, and here in the Saturday 24 hours. And so here you can see the data from the bar. And after from this data I made from these drawings the printed circuit boards. Actually, the device who was recording the data was printed circuit board, and this data came back in the printed circuit boards. Of course, not functional, but the material is printed circuit board. And then I made a little birds experiment. I set up some bird cages with sensors and watched the data from the bird cages. And here also there is some videos in the QR codes where you can check the video proof of how birds were visiting the houses, and everything functioned very well. I got the data, and after I made again the printed circuit boards from this data. And the next experiment was in the Art Academy of Latvia. I put everywhere different kind of sensors to collect the data and to watch what can I get from it. And for example, this is 24 hours somewhere in the Art Academy, different kind of data, the sound levels, the light levels. Yeah, looks like that's it. And then I made a little code for recognizing the sounds. We have in the Art Academy a bell, the ring, which separates the lectures, the beginning and end of the lectures, and these red lines are this bell. When the bell was ringing, my device could recognize it and put the red line in the drawing. This is 1 week in one classroom at the academy, 1 day. For example, this part here, this is a cleaning lady. When she comes in the morning to clean the room, we can see how long she is there. The red line is when the door is open. Yeah, the red line is door opening. The yellow line is a light. Blue line is humidity, the level of humidity. And you see the cleaning lady is washing the floor and the humidity goes up. So you can read actually everything from the simple data and imagine what happens there. And then there was one chair set up with the sensors also. The chair was measuring the surface temperature and the 0 levels. And after that, again, I made a printed circuit board of 1 day in Art Academy. Then there is another artwork in another exhibition. There was one room which I made kind of separated. I mean, with this is, you see the differences. This is a automated curtains, and you could actually call this artwork and take the control over the artwork, and you could, with the buttons on your phone, you could control every part of this artwork. So if you wanted to see the artwork, you have to call it. When you call it, the lights goes on, and when you control it with the buttons, all the parts of the artwork were going down, and only then you could see the artwork when you're in a connection with it. And also I split the room in the pieces so that almost every part of this splitted camera is connected with a window on the street. So you can separate you, but the window stays open. And so actually the visitors could call these artworks also from outside, from the street when the gallery was closed. Made the circuit boards, equipped. This is usual IKEA curtains. And then I designed the tool for spraying the paint. This is how it looks, these curtains when they are down. And then I started to paint them. And this is how it looks when you came in the gallery. Actually, nothing is there. And something appears only then when you call the artwork and use these DMTF functions when you press the buttons during the phone call. Of course, everything was about the walls, the possibility to build the walls, and you can do it with your phone. And also there I collected all the data, but I didn't use the data for the artwork, but just for my purpose. And also here you can take the pictures of these QR codes to get the all videos, how it looked actually. There was also audio. And this is what I'm doing now. This is the principle, what I use. There is event, sensor, which senses this event. Sensor gives the information to microcontroller, and through the Wi-Fi or GPRS, it sends to PHP file, which puts the data in MySQL database, and there is again PHP file who takes the data out. And then actually you can use the data everywhere, not just in JavaScript HTML environment, but also in Unreal projects, Unity projects, touch designer projects, pure data projects, everywhere, different kind of. And also, yeah, I will show. So it looks in a simple way. 0. So the data is going to server, and from the server to HTML A-frame environment. I started to make some artworks for my exhibition, and this was the things I saw in Egypt, how they make the towers for the phone antennas. And this is how we do it in Riga, in Latvia. We put them on the churches, church towers. And so I started to study different kind of LED panels and made my custom screen and titles and PCBs for each artwork. So I made a little cloud with this with a cross, yeah, with the cross and with lightning. And actually, these artworks are equipped with a distance sensors, with microwave distance sensors, and they measure the distances and sends to the database, and the video takes the data from the database. And there's links to some videos you can watch later, and also the database of all the data. I will not show the videos. Oh, maybe this one. This is the last slide. One of the clouds are sensing the distance, and these data from database are taken by this light object. When you are going more further from the cloud, then these lights from the ladders are going off. When you go further, then the less lights. That's it. Thank you.
Right. I had a question. What made you so interested in the surveillance techniques, and why phone is the main kind of way to interact with your interactive installations?
Surveillance, maybe because when I was a young child, I did many bad things, and always there was some ladies in the house which was watching everything, and they know everything, and maybe that's why. And also I like to watch different kind of things in the window, so I'm curious. That's why. And the phone is our tool of this century. We can't do anything without a phone.
I'd like to say something, if that's okay. Thank you so much. Again, your work is so elaborate. So it's quite fascinating to see all the design process in the different works. There's a really a quality to taking some type of visualization of data and then just making it into an artwork that will sit on a wall. But I'm wondering again, what is the connection to this notion of the panopticon, like the principle there being that you're always being watched, but there's an internalization of that being watched, but not really knowing if you're being watched or not. And so there's a behavioral aspect to that. And so what happens when the data goes from, being the surveillance data into being an artwork that sits on a wall? Like, what is that doing? Like, how is that working with a feedback principle of the surveillance when it becomes the artwork on the wall?
Actually, there's perfectly connected with panopticon principle, because if you buy my artwork and if you put it on your home, you will be watched, and you don't know when you are watched and how much, kind of.
Oh, there's still there's sensors in the artwork, you mean? No.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, that wasn't clear.
Yes. And I didn't talk about this white sensor filled artwork. I didn't use this function in my exhibition to make these prints printed circuit boards, but actually there was installed a thing that if somebody came in front of the artwork, I got a message, and I actually could watch the data, what kind of data are coming from the artwork. And if I was interested in that, actually I could call my alt artwork and I could hear everything what happens in the close to the artwork, because there were some microphones on it. So, and actually if I wanted, I couldn't start the conversation because this artwork was equipped also with the speakers.
Okay, so it's like the phones, they're always listening, and is it changing the behavior or something? Is that part of what you're exploring? Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be very careful these days.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I also had a question. You show also that you print your own printed circuit boards for almost everything you do. I'm very happy that we get to see them because usually they're hidden. But then also for the work you did when recording the data from the classroom, you then took that data, visualized it, and printed that on a circuit board. Did that circuit board do anything besides just be a...
No, it is not functional, just visual.
But you did choose to print it on a circuit board?
Yep.
Okay, that was my question.
And actually, good question, because I didn't notice when I did it, but after I was invited to one exhibition, which was Latvian printers exhibition, and a printmakers exhibition in Japan. And this artwork was there as a print artwork. Actually, it is.
Thank you. It's super beautiful. I would like to see it. So yeah, thank you.
Hello there. I guess you can be like a professor of GDPR as well. Well, anyways, my question was like, what was the main conclusion for you about the data that you collected from the birds? What was the main thing for you? Thank you.
Not the main, but one of the things I noticed, for example, the birds are different. This is what I noticed. And one of them, they are the food they are collecting it in the mornings and on the ground. And when they are searching for the food, they are getting wet because in the mornings the grass is wet. And then when they came back to the cage, they bring the humidity in the, and so I can separate which birds are searching the food on the floor and which are maybe catching it in the sky.
When you say different, you mean individuals? They are.
Yeah.
So, from one family.
Species, the species, yeah. No. Species.
Right. Thank you, Martin, again for your presentation.
And some birds were not sleeping in the cage at the nights. They are sleeping somewhere else. They are coming to they're coming to home just at 4, 5 o'clock, just when the light went on. But this also depends on the species.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are Chantal and Gisèle TRUDEL. I hope I pronounce your name right. Sensing changing climates. Thank you for your wonderful video. As it was silent, maybe we need also more commentary on the novel ideas we could see in your work.
Did you say it was silent? What did you mean?
No, it was just captions. It was just captions and a lot of ideas.
Maybe you can, thank you, really interesting how you approach sensing, but also particularly, can you maybe also comment a little bit more about how you see this individual and collective sensing, or so I really liked how you navigated between the systems like of collectivity, but then also paying attention that they are individual as well, or they consist of individuals.
Sure, thank you for the question. I think it can be, there's many people that are thinking about this. I could say in someone like Donna Haraway, where we're working between the autopoietic and the sympoietic, and the fact that Simondon talks about individuation is that there's not, an individual is not a fixed essence or substance. And that's our, let's say, our modernist heritage that we're still struggling with. And I think it's really the problem, probably one of the main problems, that having considered the individual as let's say the only way to consider the problem, well, we've cut ourselves off from all of the occasions and the actual interdependency that we have with in the world. And so breaking away, I mean, we still are individual bodies, but those bodies are made up of tons of processes that we know that the bacteria is much more present in our body than in terms of volume than we can actually say what is an individual. So yeah, I think those are the things that are for us that were interesting. Chantal, maybe you want to chime in.
Well, continuing on what you just said about individuation in relation with Simondon thinking, the beauty of Simondon thinking is that for him, it's the continuous interrelation between the three regimes of physical, biological, and psychosocial realms that always create individuals that are actually more than human. So it's very interesting to, and I think thinking with Simondon bring an interesting perspective on climate change and how we can how we can now think about climate change in a agentive and more than human ways.
Thank you. What caught my attention was this extended understanding of individual. You had this quote that it relieves us of the guilt and fear, which makes us struggle to actually take an action towards changing the effects of climate change and helping somehow the situation. Do you feel that changing this perception of individual has helped you personally to deal with the threat of climate change?
Well, for me as an artist, I've always been interested in notions of subjectivation. So not exclusively my expression, but the expression that's combined and with machines and other people and environments and the concept of the milieu in terms of what Simondon talks about is that it's a meeting point. And so you're constantly being informed by this meeting. And in the sense of Simondon talking about information is that it's the capacity to feel change and to act with change, right? So, but there's often something that is a break in a flux there. But yeah, no, for me as an artist, like just this whole project working with the scientists of Smart Forests Canada, I mean, I learned so much about the trees, which has been so incredible, and just for that, understanding more and and feeling more with the trees has been, well, it's just going to do my work for the next decades, I think. So yeah, we wouldn't exist without the trees. So I don't want to say that in the sense of, I'm dependent on trees, or the trees are dependent on us, because it's actually our carbon dioxide feeds the trees as well. So, but I think for me, it's been really important to consider those processes in individuation.
And for me, it's actually just emphasize a very always situated experience of life to just feel that the multiple agencies at play all the time, it's just like, it is for me the reality of life. in my always situated event of life. Yeah, so, and it applied to all scales for me.
Okay, thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much.
We move forward with the presentation of Nima BAHREHMAND and August Black, The End of Us. Nima BAHREHMAND is an interdisciplinary artist and scholar. His artistic research explores bodies, archives, and places that became suppressed, desertified, and subjugated by political, economic, and technological progress. He creates discursive ties around redefining and reworking data, unraveling how the databasing apparatuses service the dominance of the global north to extract and manipulate the dignity of the south. And August Black is a hybrid practitioner of art, design, and engineering that critically engages with techno-social systems in playful and evocative ways. With a focus on audio and transmission, he creates software systems and spaces through experimental research in the overlapping areas of new formats, network dynamics, and collaborative virtual architectures.
It's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism.
And from there, the move towards survival becomes inevitable. Whatever it takes, no matter the cost.
Zalphobus Moria survived through cannibalism. When food runs out, they turn on each other. It's a necessity, an instinct born out of scarcity.
It's a reflection of nature's harsh logic. Survival means adapting. Even if that adaptation is destructive, like when organisms feed on their own to endure harsh conditions.
It's not just in nature. Humans do the same, exploiting resources without thought of what comes next, consuming what can be replenished.
Zophobos Morio's ability to digest styrofoam has a strange twist. They consume waste to survive, like how humans burn through crude oil, using whatever is available just to keep going, no matter the long-term cost.
It's more than survival. It's cannibalism on an ecological scale. Just as Zophobos Morio devour each other, we consume the earth, stripping it bare without regard for the future.
It's a loop, a self-consuming cycle. Every solution seems to extend the same system that's already eating itself alive.
Even technological fix carry that tension. Zophobos Morio break down plastic, but the process feels unsettling. A survival mechanism that mirror our own, consuming without knowing when or how to stop.
Each act of survival holds the seed of destruction. Zophobos Morio digesting styrofoam. It's efficient but eerie, like a reflection of us, driven by necessity, feeding on what remains, unaware of when the end might come.
It's all the same. Survival, consumption, exploitation. Whether it's Zophobos Morio or humans, the question remains, how much longer can we keep feeding on what's left?
I was wondering, how long can these worms survive on the diet of styrofoam?
They only live a very short life anyway, but they tend to live out, the month or so that they are alive eating styrofoam. About 70–80% survive pretty well.
All right, thank you for clarification. As I saw some
Nima,
news about
I also
Danilo.
want to add something that if they want to survive for a longer period of time, they need to create a pupil around themselves to become beetles. And they cannot do that act when they are in their society. So they cannot grow in their colony. They have to become individualized, as we heard from the previous presentation, that it's like a kind of a irony. If you want to survive, you have to be alone. So
Question, is the waste they produce enables them to create the envelope? Or what happens to their waste?
the waste is compost. So we can use
Waste
it
is
as a
compost.
compost.
Yeah, as far as we know, it's the only living creature that can actually digest polystyrene. And we see this as a kind of inspiration.
It is inspirational, but maybe you can comment what happens to all these toxins that are in the plastic. Is it all totally digested?
There's as far as I know, the studies are still kind of out on this, but they can use the biodegraded waste to feed other things, and like they've fed these superworms to other animals, and there have been no, as of yet, harmful side effects. So they're really interested in the what's happening in these worms' guts, how they're able to actually break down this material. Yeah, they can't actually use it to you know, at scale to digest and break down this material, but they're looking at the chemical properties to see if they can mimic it.
Thank you for the presentation and already answering very vivid questions. And my question is about the ethical issues about using living organisms in an exhibition space, because I think in the past there has been always certain issues and controversial discussions. What is the meaning of consent and an ethics of having these collaborations? Because every artist has a different approach, and they're always facing a similar question, I think, and you probably have heard this question as well. So what is your take?
These worms being sold as through the reptile industry. They sell them as food for reptile, lizard, and snakes, but it's an interspecies practice, and I think we keep them in our projects and they live longer. We feed them with potatoes too. So every day we check in with them. And I have an emotional connection now with them. And we know that they are very kind of responsive to music. And when you play music, their performance change. And I think like this form of like more like human interaction with them rather than feeding our other pets through these worms is kind of a more deeply human kind of interaction with this kind of species, and we care about them very much. And we always aware of ethical like aspect of our practice. So most of the elements that we use in these projects are recycled. We never ever buy any kind of styrofoam, or even the frames and stands and things like that are recycled material too.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say thank you for the question. That is actually the first time we've received it. And this is a work in progress. It's the first time we've kind of presented it in this kind of context with an audience.
I have a more technical question, because when you speak about the mealworms, I think you speak about Tenebrae molitor, right? The species? I don't know which species are you.
So Phobos, it's a different, it's not exactly a mealworm. It's they call it a superworm.
Okay, there's some scientific literature just posing the focus on 8 bacterial species between Acinetobacter, Agrobacterium, Klebsiella, and so on, and saying that actually it's not the mealworm and the metabolism of the mealworm, but actually the composition of the intestinal bacterial cocktail, so to say, that is actually having the agency. So talking about individuation, and with Simondon arguing that at the lowest level, it's just a metabolic molecular process, and individuation then on the organism level is another one, and then the social behavioral one is another one. And which level of individuation would you put the agency then, on that of the worm or that of the bacteria?
Nima, you want to field this one? I really don't know.
I didn't get the question, honestly. So we more like not move towards a scientific. We are artists and we live based on our speculation. So in this piece, we are deeply inspired by Vampire Squid. I cannot say the whole title of the book by William Flusser, and also Cyclonopedia by Reza Negarestani. Main text inspiration for this piece, like a whole, and like how this like environment can be like what they call simulation of our performance in global Earth, and like digging a hole or as like a form of like a route towards seeping, infection into infrastructure of the planet Earth that like these mealworms does. They unconsciously digesting something that they're not aware of that. I don't know if it's through bacteria or if through their like the system that they live in. And also on the other hand, like the comparison of like being in a harsh condition, how we are mobilizing ourselves on planet Earth and like creating tons of holes in it and want to departure to another planet. So these are like some sort of like, and also being under the surveillance 24/7. So we are also in control of these forms. And so these are so many elements into that, and we didn't deep into the scientific and lab procedure of these forms.
Okay, seems we are out of questions. So thank you, for actualizing these issues. And yeah, we will conclude this panel.